Recorded Books presents a Southern Voices production. Safe from the Neighbors by Steve Yarbrough. This unabridged recording is narrated by Ryder Smith and directed by Robert Pear. This book is copyrighted 2010 by Steve Yarbrough. This recording is copyrighted 2010 by Recorded Books, producer and publisher of Southern Voices, celebrating the rich heritage and distinct characteristics of Southern writers. The author opens with a quote from Milan Kundera. The perpetual activity of forgetting gives our every act a ghostly, unreal, hazy quality. What did we have for lunch the day before yesterday? And now, Safe from the Neighbors.
The 16th section. Just look what happens to poets, I used to tell my honors class on the first day of school. Half the time they go mad. And you know why I think that happens? Too much truth distilled to its essence, all surrounding evidence ignored or discarded. And I'm not faulting them for that. They're just doing what poets are supposed to do, and they've left us some beautiful works of literature, some of which have lasted for hundreds of years. When you pursue truth the way a historian does, though, you'll find that it seldom travels without escort. There are all kinds of accompanying data, and causation, in particular, is usually a complicated matter. Let me give you an example of what I mean. In 1944, the day after the Allies landed in Normandy, a woman who lived down in Belzoni gave birth prematurely to quintuplets, and all of them died within the hour. The Jackson and Memphis papers had already reported the invasion, and this poor woman had reason to believe her husband was there. Like women all over Mississippi, all over America, she was terrified, scared to death her guy might have died on a beach thousands of miles from home. Now, what effect do you think her fears could have had on her pregnancy? A hand or two always went up. Maybe it got her so scared it threw her into labor. It certainly could have. Things like that do happen. And so, since there would have been no reason for her husband to storm those beaches if the Nazis hadn't been entrenched there, you might consider accusing Adolf Hitler of having helped cause the deaths of those babies, along with all those other deaths he helped cause, millions upon millions of death in hundreds of battles or in concentration camps spread across Europe. But you might look for other causes as well. For instance, when I was a student up at Ole Miss, where I learned about these dead babies while working on an oral history project, I discovered this lady's father had lost his job in 1931 and stayed unemployed until 1942. The whole time she was growing up, she didn't have enough to eat. So by the time she got married, she'd been malnourished for years, just like a lot of other Americans at that time, including my mother and father and quite a few of your grandparents. We're talking about the Great Depression. And who usually gets blamed for responding inadequately to that? Another hand in the air. Herbert Hoover? That's right. We won't worry about whether that's fair or not. We'll just add his name next to Hitler's. I usually started to move around the room at this point, walking over to the window to look out at the athletic fields where the Loring High football and baseball teams held their practices. With my back to the students, I'd say, "Of course, it turns out this woman had smoked all the way through her pregnancy, and according to some, drank hard liquor, too. It was illegal in Mississippi back then, but you could get booze from bootleggers, and more than a few people thought she did, though they weren't sure how, given that she was poor and broke. These days, knowing a lot more about the effects of smoking and drinking on fetuses in utero, we might want to add her own name to the list of folks responsible for this. We might put her mom's name up there, too, because when she found out her daughter was pregnant, she told this troubled young woman to get out of the house, that she and her husband
Sample complete. Ready to continue?